Afternoon, Bill.
Good afternoon, Mark. This is our second podcast today, and we've just come from one in central Geelong, which will be posted on. No, by the time this one goes, it will be last
Up and
week.
running. And wasn't Julia interesting?
That's right. It'll be last week. But one of the things we spoke about, Julia was the CEO of G21, and we had this discussion about, a bit of a discussion about, is Geelong part of Melbourne or is Geelong? And I don't think we posted most of what we were discussing about, but it is a hot issue. But G21 represents 5 councils, so it's a regional advocacy body, and it's a great model.
It was a good story.
And
So
we'll hear that on her podcast.
So who are we chatting to tonight? Or this afternoon?
Tonight?
It's not. It's getting dark,
and
isn't
it's cold here in the afternoon. We're talking to Sonia Petering. Sonia is a lawyer by training, and is a fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, of which you are as well, Mark.
Yep.
And she has I believe, an interesting story to tell. Once again, as we say, all our guests are interesting. So I'll hand over to you, Mark.
Afternoon, Sonia.
Good afternoon, Mark. Very nice to meet you.
It's great to have you here. So we always start with a very basic question. Where was primary school?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the question. And congratulations to both of you on the podcast series. What number are you up to now?
Just under 89, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
We better have a look.
We better have a look.
So I do love listening to podcasts, and it's great listening to other people's stories. So I endorse your comments there, Bill.
Good.
So primary school was at Burrum Primary School, which was about 3.5 hours north of Geelong. A little place outside of Minyip, which is also a little place outside of Horsham.
So you're on a farm?
Yes, I grew up on a wheat and sheep farm in just outside of Minyip. And the primary school was one of those one-room schools.
Yep.
So I think we actually graduated to 2 rooms in the exciting sort of second half of my primary school. So about 20 children went to school there, I think. And I do remember fondly in the mornings we would meet at what we called the 5 roads, and there were 4 families who would take all the children, and I think there might have been 11 in the one car to school from the 5 ways. It was fine in the summer because it was a dirt road, but in the winter we had to go around the bitumen, so it took a lot longer to go to school, and we wouldn't get to school till probably 9:30. So some pretty fond memories there, and I'll talk to you about my board role, but when I went onto the Transport Accident Commission, I used to reflect back on those times of 11 children in the car and thought that wasn't very good practice, really, was it?
Well, that's a quick aside is that for a little while there in primary school in Cobram, we lived on a farm outside of Qantm for a couple of years, and it was a similar story, dirt road, and Mum would drive me down the end of the road, another parent would come and pick us up, take us into school, but we used to sit on, my father had a Fairlane ute, I remember, never forget it, and we used to lie on the little thing behind where his head was, right? So they're the old safety rules, that's right.
But the other interesting thing is the number of people we've spoken to have all come off farms.
Yeah.
And Gareth, for one, who would ride his horse to school and leave it in the paddock next to the...
Well, I was expecting Sonia to say
I was going to ask, did you come...
She was going to hop on the horse and go down the dirt road.
I did have horses, but I didn't ride them to
Did
school.
ride them to school.
So after primary school, what next?
After primary school, we went to Donald High School. So caught the bus from just up the road, and so that was in the early 80s. So in 1982, I was year 7 at Donald High School. And so I got to do all my school at Donald, and I think that in year 12 there was, I actually forget, but maybe 15 students in year 12. Yeah. That was in 1987.
Wow! And did you have a job while you were in high school?
Look, I worked on the farm.
So that was
you. I would say for less
unpaid
than commercial rates. I can throw a fleece, and so I used to work in the wool shed, and obviously worked around the farm at harvest time. And so no, I didn't. I did some babysitting actually, and I think when I remember back the babysitting, I think I was getting about $5 an hour back then. I loved school, loved learning, still do. And I did well at school, and so I have very fond memories of Donald High School. I was school captain in 1987.
Okay, very cool.
Whilst at high school, did you have any idea, how firm were you on where you wanted to go in the next part? Did you have a vision of where you wanted to go?
Not really, Bill. I sought some advice from the school counsellor then, the careers counsellor, and I thought I might have wanted to do accounting and be an accountant. So I put down my preferences to do a Bachelor of Commerce, which I did do, and then the school counsellor Graham Leishman suggested to me, why don't you put law down, because you might get the marks and, if you do, you can get in. So I didn't really know any professional people. I didn't know any lawyers. I particularly didn't know any female lawyers, and I knew a couple of accountants, but I didn't have anyone to sort of base my career decisions on. There was no mentors as there was back then. So as it turned out, I did get the marks on a second round offer to go to the University of Melbourne to do a law degree and commerce degree. So I didn't really have a vision other than I thought I might want to do accounting. But anyway, as it turned out, I'm now a lawyer. So
okay, that's cool. And did you move to Melbourne then to go to Melbourne Uni? Yeah, I
did. That's right. Yeah, so I left there. I was determined one thing that I wanted to move to Melbourne, be in the big smoke, and I wanted to try out living in Melbourne. So I moved down there just after exams finished in Year 12, and I worked with my auntie who has had a catering company, and I was helping her doing the books. And then I was accepted into Queen's College, which was a great opportunity. So I lived on campus at the University of Melbourne for 3 years in one of the colleges there, and I made friends for life at Queen's. It was a fantastic environment for a country kid to learn how to live in the big smoke. So, yeah, I loved it. It was great.
And did you any specialty in law? What was your focus?
Yeah, I didn't specialise in law. I specialised in economic history and economics with my commerce degree, so I did the 2 degrees. No, I really sort of came out of the law degree sort of open to opportunities, really.
Okay, very cool.
And straight out of uni, did you have part-time jobs whilst you were at uni?
I did. I had 4 jobs, actually. So I worked in the kitchen at Queen's College in hospitality.
Thanks to your family training before.
Exactly. Actually, and thanks to my grandmother. When I was at high school, my grandmother used to love throwing dinner parties. And so she would ask my sister and I to come and look after the kitchen aspects of the dinner party, so serving and doing some of the cleaning up. And they were fond memories, actually, working. And my grandmother, she died at 96 a couple of years ago. And so, great memories of her and hospitality. So I worked at Queen's College, I cleaned houses, and I actually took notes for a girl who had cerebral palsy and she was studying law. So fascinating. I used to go along to her lectures and take notes for her and do the notes. And something else, I can't remember my 4th one, was probably still working for my auntie actually doing the books.
And so once you graduated, what then?
So I did a summer clerkship and in Melbourne. That was in my 4th or 5th year. And then I got a job doing articles. But in the meantime, I'd been overseas for, I think it was 5 months. I worked in a law firm in Oxford. So that was a great experience.
Good experience.
Yeah. And then I came back to Melbourne and did my articles with Oakley, Thompson and Co. And I then moved to regional Victoria after I married my husband, David, in 1994. So working in Melbourne a bit and then moved back to regional Victoria. So when you asked me about jobs before, Bill, I actually did have a part-time job over the summer in 1986, I think it was, at the Minyip Pharmacy. And that's actually where I met my husband. He came in to buy some perfume for his mum.
There's our tipping point.
There's our tipping point. There's one.
That's right. Yeah.
So when you moved, where did you move to in regional Vic? Down to Geelong or?
No, back
Minyip,
up to
Minyip. Oh,
yes.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And were you practicing law then?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
And were you running your own place at Minyip, or were you working for someone in Minyip?
I was working for a firm in actually Donald Birchip and Witcherproof. Yeah. So working for Oakley, Thompson and Co.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So they were just near the farm.
Near the farm. Yeah. Okay. Oh, right. Brilliant.
Well, Sonia, the other thing is you've had a very esteemed, an interesting board career as well, and in recent times. So I guess trying to jump forward a little bit, you went back to the bush. Now, what brought you back into the big smoke? and then we'll talk about some of your board journeys.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
So I kind of think about my career as kind of three phases.
Yeah.
So firstly, law, and I worked back in regional Victoria, and then having had children would be one of my tipping points, really. Our eldest was born in 1998, so then was being a working mum. And then after the children left school, and it was then sort of, and the board kind of overlapped a bit of that. And so the phase I'm in at the moment is the sort of law and company director roles. So your question was about when did I start my
What was your first board
role?
role?
So I did a not-for-profit when I was working as a lawyer in Horsham, actually. After working in Donald Birchip, I moved over to a different law firm and worked in Horsham and was working in criminal law and family law. And I was on the board of Palm Lodge Rehabilitation Centre, which is a drug and alcohol rehabilitation centre there. Some of my clients utilise those services. So I was on that board as my first one. And then I've heard you speak in your other podcasts around the community bank model. In fact, I was one of the first directors of the community bank, the first one, which was in Rapaniat Minyip.
Yep.
So actually helped that start up because I was really passionate about trying to retain services in the region and wanted banking to be retained. So went on that first one. So that was my probably second or so board role. I was approached to see if I would be interested in applying for the water boards. And back then I was working as a lawyer in Horsham, so I was sort of known to be a professional young woman and was approached if I was interested, and I was successful in that. So that was my first paid board role, being
Was
part
that
of the...
GWM?
That's right, it was, yeah. And they were about to put in the $650 million big pipeline.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine, Mark Williams,
Yes.
is running...
Yes.
Not CEO, he's the managing director.
That's right, he
and
is.
doing a great job.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful person.
Yeah, he is terrific. In fact, coming back to some of the roles that I'm doing now, I do the interviews for all of the water board directors across the state. So been helping the Minister for Water over many years, actually. So I have interviewed
that's an interesting role.
quite a number of people, I would say in the thousands of
Wow.
directors, because there are 18 water authorities across Victoria,
Yeah.
GWM being one of them. And so it's been a great privilege actually to meet a lot of people in interview situations and talk to them about the prospective of becoming a director. But so my first paid board role was at Wimmera Mallee Water back then. It was named, then merged with Grampians Wimmera Mallee Water, Grampians Wimmera Mallee, I think, or Grampians Water become Wimmera Mallee Water. And then from there, it's been just sort of opportunity. I met Donald McGeechy actually at a VFF conference, and he asked me whether I knew any professional female regional women.
So did your hand
put
go
your hand
straight up?
And I thought, I'll see if I can introduce you to anyone. And so we met, and I was invited to participate or to become on the board of Rural Finance Corporation.
Yeah.
That was great, loved that, and I became chair of that. And so that was a really great opportunity. I was first female chair there. And then my board career just grew when, so we moved to Geelong. I think your question a few questions ago, Bill, was about the move to Geelong. We as a family decided we would move to Geelong for various opportunities, and David was a farmer then. He had a property down here. And so the kids were about to go to school or to senior school. And so I was invited to consider being part of the Transport Accident Commission, as I referenced earlier. And so the Chief of Staff of the then Minister rang me and said, look, I hear you're moving to Geelong, and we're looking for someone to go on the board of the Transport Accident Commission. So I've been incredibly fortunate, and, you know, lots of opportunities have sort of come the way, or, you know, we sort of seek out opportunities, but have been really fortunate that these great opportunities have presented themselves. And I guess one of my life lessons, we talked about, you know, some of the things that I would talk about in terms of life lessons, was sometimes opportunity does knock pretty softly, and you need to think about, you know, taking up that moment, because you don't know, you don't have all the answers right there, but you sometimes just need to walk through that door and give it a go.
And it's also about networks.
It is, yeah.
Very much so. But not forced networks.
No.
It's about your own ability to network quietly.
Yeah, authentically.
We often, Mark and I have younger people, anyone younger than me, come and ask us about how do I get on a board, you know, and all these sorts of things. And you know, it's one of the first things I say is, well, you've got a network and you've got to have a goal, or where do you think you want to go? And you've got to go out and you've got to ask questions, and if need be, you've got to volunteer and do things, and no point being the best kept secret in town, right? That won't help you.
No, it would.
And you and I both know that. Yeah.
One thing because we were stalking you on LinkedIn, we see you did the mine disaster.
Hazard Mine Fire Inquiry.
How did you get onto that? How did that?
Yeah, again, I was at a phone call. Andrew Tung at the Department of Premier and Cabinet rang me one day and he said, Sonia, would you be interested in doing this inquiry? And I said, what inquiry, Andrew? And he said, this inquiry about the fires in Morwell. And I said, is it a big role? Like, would it take... And he said, look, it'll be a few weeks.
Yeah, and how long did it take?
7 months.
Yep.
And I said to him, look, that sounds pretty interesting. I'll think about doing that. And I was in Melbourne. I took the phone call when I was in Melbourne. And on the drive home to Geelong, I heard my name on the news saying, Sonia...
It was all ready to go.
...to Hazel Mine Fire Inquiry. I'm like, right, okay.
You don't remember saying yes.
Well, I said I would consider it, but I think they were in a pretty big hurry to get it started.
Yeah.
So I read Justice Bernard Teague's judgments studying law at Melbourne University. So the first time we met was just in front of the press conference when I had to drive to Morwell to go and start the role. And so I walked into this room of press and I said, Your Honour, hello. He said, call me Bernie. He's such a lovely man. Gosh, it was a privilege working with him. So.
And was that interesting?
Oh, fascinating. Yeah, the community really got hurt by that.
They did, didn't they?
They did. And so our role was to investigate the source of the fire and what happened. And so then there was a subsequent inquiry after that. But I was on the initial one and we had to really determine sort of, what happened and how did it come about and the extent of the harm that it caused. Yeah,
do you ask you a personal question, do you get emotionally connected to things like that when you're hearing the evidence and the horror that comes out of...
Yeah, and we had a lot of community engagement, so sitting down, listening to members of the community tell their story and some of the, the pain that people went through and some of the trauma and the health issues, and it was pretty awful. Yeah,
interesting, very interesting. So we're talking a little bit about, we get asked, how do you get on a board? And you've got a really good story because yours is about those sort of soft networks working, and that leads to connections and so on. So,
and building a reputation.
And a very strong reputation. If you're talking to somebody much younger who's saying, how do I get onto your board? How would you lead them or point them?
So I think all of those things are true about doing a good job where you are. And I think training and education. So a disclaimer is that I'm now on the Victorian Council of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, but I think doing the Company Directors course, the Australian Institute of Company Directors put out, and there are other courses as well. The Governance Institute run a course, but I think if you do a course, you demonstrate that you are committed to this particular vocation. I really owe a lot of gratitude to the Victorian government who assisted me with the roles that I had, firstly at the Water Authority, then at Rural Finance Corporation, which was later sold to Bendigo Bank, and also to the Transport Accident Commission. So those three government board roles really set me up incredibly well, and I think government has a fantastic is a fantastic platform for people to start their board roles. And the government policy on 50% of boards need to be women is, very commendable.
Yep.
So I think it's, do a good job where you are. You really do need to get to a certain position in your career before you're necessarily ready to be on a board governing and giving advice to management. So there is a theme, a school of thought that it'd be good to have some younger people on boards, but it's challenging if you haven't been through a lot of experience to then be guiding management through or governing management through that. Definitely be networked. You need to be known to the recruiter population. So both.
Now that is an important point, isn't it?
So both in Melbourne and other cities.
Yeah.
Sydney, Perth, Brisbane. Because if you are known by them, you can be validated if a board comes to them saying, look, we'd like this particular profile of a board member to come and join our board. And so I think there are just a number of those initiatives that you can undertake, and as you say, Bill, just being networked.
And don't underestimate your reputation, because I think you've downplayed that a little bit. You've worked hard, and that's made you stand out. Therefore, when people are saying, we need someone, has anyone talked to Sonia? That becomes the step, which is very good.
Now, just on another board issue quickly, if we can. I know you've done some recent education or personal development in the area of boards and AI strategy and cyber security and all the rest of it. Can I just ask you to make some comments about that and what drives you to focus on that?
I referenced before about loving learning, and I still do, and I think it's an important character of all of us to continue our education through our life. Yeah. And so I've enjoyed doing short courses and continuing to learn. I think you continue to grow. I think we live in a really interesting time. I mean, what time hasn't been interesting? But I think AI is a fascinating tool that we really do need to understand and embrace. And generative AI will change a number of industries as they are known right now. And you probably can't think of an industry where AI won't impact it. I think cyber is a real challenge for all of us and the challenges that it presents. And so doing these short courses help to build your defence mechanisms in the event that there is a crisis. So I think it's important upon us as leaders to keep learning about new things. So, yeah. Well,
as you know, I work in the area of family business, and I'm shocked by the lack of, I guess, well, not only knowledge, but the awareness of how vulnerable a lot of these businesses are, but more importantly, how vulnerable directors are now, and when it comes to liabilities and doing their fiduciary duty and all those sorts of words you put around being a director. As I say, there's a huge learning opportunity that I guess private company directors and family business directors need to be made aware of and need to become up to speed.
Yeah.
I'll just jump back in a different direction quickly. Mark was talking about how do you would advise people looking to get on the boards, but how in general the next couple of generations. What's your advice for people in the next couple of generations? Just given your experience, what would you be saying to a 30-year-old or somebody just coming out of uni or TAFE, or it doesn't matter where they come from? What sort of advice? Because you do a bit of mentoring. So can you just elaborate on that for us?
Thank you, Bill. Yeah. So if I think about some of the things that I've learnt in my career, it is around taking on tough things and not necessarily knowing all the answers at the front. So if you're presented with an opportunity that is challenging, take it up because you learn a lot from that. And so I think it's lean into those challenging roles. And I think before you were talking about reputation, Mark, and one of the things I was going to say is it's easy to govern in the sunshine. When things are going well, cash flows in, revenues up, profits up, people are happy. It's really easy to be a director in those environments. What's tough is to be a director when things aren't going well. And so when you've got challenges that you're faced, it's about how you own up and how you lean into those challenges, how you face the challenges, and then build a story or a reputation around how you guided that organisation through that challenge. And they're the moments I think that people ask you about in interviews, or when you're thinking about going for a role, people will say, tell us about your tough times, not the times where it's been easy. So if you get practice at taking on tough assignments or tough projects, I would say do it, because you'll grow, you'll learn, and you'll have some scars and some wounds to take to the next.
Regardless if you've got imposter syndrome.
I think we've all got imposter syndrome. Right. I don't know anyone who doesn't, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right.
And so imposter syndrome is about trying to keep those wolves at the door and say, yes, I know you're there and I know that you want to give me some negative things, but you've just really got to it's about mindset. So other sort of lessons would be around practicing gratitude, because I think that helps you in a positive mindset, and you can then embrace some of those challenges.
You must have read my latest post on LinkedIn.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Because I spoke about mindset, the book. You know who I'm talking about? What's her name? How good's my memory? But once again, and I keep rereading this book on mindset because I think it's paramount. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned it.
And I think habits become the way you are too. So if you start habits and things like, exercise, continuing learning, practicing gratitude, saving money, getting up early, I think those habits then start to form how you are and how you show up at work as well. I think seeking feedback, sometimes it takes a bit of courage to ask for it and to listen to what they say, and it takes courage to give it as well. So I'm trying to work on being present in the moment so that you are giving 100% to the two of you here in this room. And I think so that things like how people perceive you, you can ask that for some feedback. Not everyone gives you feedback that you can use, things like you did well or you're going well. It's not really helpful. Yep. So it's the feedback that you can take on and embrace.
Well, you do have to filter it sometimes. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. And Sonia just mentioned, sitting here sort of in the moment. Well, you and all our guests come to our podcast totally unprepared because we don't tell you what the questions are going to be and we don't have a script. So
we've been asked twice for a script and we've gone, no, it doesn't happen that way. And but it's worked well. They've turned up and embraced the moment. And on it's gone. So, So coming to the present, Sonia, we had a quick chat before we went on air. So you're working in environmental law. Now, that's right. For your own business?
Yes, that's right.
So what's it called?
Native Vegetation Offsets.
And that's the company name or the...
Oh, my business is the Sonia Petering Law.
Sonia Petering Law. Yeah. And it's Natural Vegetation Offsets.
That's right.
Lots of business in it?
There is. I offer advice to a select group of landowners usually. I've had some developers ask me to do some work for them and I focus on landowners.
Yep.
And on their behalf negotiate with other developers to arrange an offset, a native vegetation offset. So the landowner has property.
Yep.
A covenant goes over the land.
Yep.
That covenant has to stay in perpetuity forever. So therefore, the developer can then go and build their thing or whatever it is, get their permit. So for the covenant to stay on the landowner's land forever means that it's an expensive exercise. So I assist the landowners in advice and the security mechanism that can go on the property and negotiating with the developer. And that's
you're seeing that growing?
Look, it's a niche area. And so I've been doing that for sort of about 10 years or so. And it's certainly developers are in a great need for that. And it protects the environment, right? Because there is some species that are protected. So they need to be protected forever so that our environment continues.
Yeah, very good. Very interesting.
Very topical for this new land developments around, particularly residential developments and out Larraway and all the rest of it. These are critical issues now.
They are, yeah.
It's, and I haven't really taken much notice of that before, so thank you for enlightening us about that. And good on you for finding a niche that you become an absolute, I call it, the only word I ever use is expert. And it's the only word that can describe people's knowledge in certain areas.
I think you're being very kind. Thanks for that.
And you're also, as you've touched on the AICD and the Victorian Council.
That's right.
How did you find that?
I've had one meeting. So
okay.
So I'm looking forward to assisting. I have been a strong advocate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and the work that they do in terms of some of the policy and advocacy work and the education. So, looking forward to that.
And how long's the term for?
Good question. I think it's a 3-year
3-year term. Okay.
I think so. And then my other board roles at the moment. So I've got a listed board. I'm chair of that. So that's Qantm, intellectual property. And that's going through a transaction. And I'm on the board of TAL, which is Australia's largest life insurer. And we are underinsured as a population, overweight in property and underinsured. So for those listeners, it'd be great for you to go and check your life insurance policies because it's a topic that people don't really like to bring up at barbecues.
It is, isn't it?
It's fascinating. TAL, and then I'm on a biotechnology company called Vitrafy, which freezes biomaterial, freezes and thaws. So it's cryopreservation.
So bodies?
No.
And okay, so that's all about work and everything else. What happens after work? Right? What's your other activities in life?
Yeah. Well, my greatest achievement in life is my children.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my husband and I love going out for dinner with our children, and they're now adults. I love exercising. So I do Pilates, and I've got a personal trainer. I'm in an amazing book club of some fantastic women. I'm sure every one of them could be great at being a guest on your podcast. So we read some really fantastic books. I'm also in an art group. We decided 3 years ago, there's a group of 20, some couples and some singles, but so 20 groups, 20 units, all put money in every year, and then we've got a large sum of money to spend every year on art. We acquire pieces of art, and then in 10 years' time, we wrap up the collection, and everyone has an amount to auction, and we'll take a piece home. So we're collecting art for the next 10 years, and we're in our third year.
Oh, wow.
What a great thing
What
to
a great
do.
concept.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We're all learning about
Yeah.
collecting art, owning art, Australian contemporary art. So
That's brilliant.
Excellent.
That is really cool. I like that. Excellent. Well, Sonia, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And as Bill and I say, every guest we have, everyone we chat to has got such a great story. And you've just added to that even further. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. It's been great to listen to your story.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.